like I am going to introduce the little bit of shell scripting. So as we have already know, I have given you the different topics that we are going to cover. Like without wasting time, I'm just directly going to jump onto the main topic itself. So the DB2 is also what was called as a DB2 UDP. Like this was the term people might be confusing you. So previously, the DB2 used to call as DB2 UDB. UDB is nothing but Universal Database. So that has been now changed to DB2 LUW, nothing but Linux, Unix, and Windows. So these are the two different terms that usually confuses people. So I thought of putting a slide to clarify these things. So now most of the people like who came after the version 9, they usually call it as a DB2 LUW. But people who are before 9, they still may be calling it as a UDW. UDB. So Universal Database, that is also fine, but the IBM is officially calling now the DB2 as DB2 LUW to represent Linux and Unix compatible database. DB2 is a
Venkat.
yeah.
Venkat?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
I
yeah.
have a small doubt.
Yeah.
And do you recording the session?
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So the DB2 UDB term has been removed in order to like there is a confusion like the DB2 is going to be supported on all the mainframe and I series, but these are of two different flavors. That's why the term has been introduced. So the DB2 is a basically RDBMS software like Oracle and SQL Server or MySQL or Teradata. So it is going to support all or it is going to be built upon EF code rules. Like I'm not going to explain the EF code rules, like which may be boring for you, but it's RDBMS software. Because why we are calling it is a RDBMS software? It is a going to establish or it is going to be follow the relations between the different tables. We'll see why and how the relations are going to be followed as part of making the constraints and all those things. But just remember, this is an RDBMS software. Nowadays, like all the databases that we are seeing for at least OLTP or RDBMS softwares only. Now we got something called as big data databases, which are also kind of relational database management system, but underlying file system and how they are going to manage are getting changed. So it could be a Hadoop distributed file system. This is also nothing but like it is also based upon the RDBMS principles, but they don't strictly follow this EF code rules. So they eased out the EF code rules for the benefit of performance improvement there. But in our RDBMS world, we are going to strictly follow the EF code rules. The EF code is the person who has laid out some rules for RDBMS software. So there are some 12 rules. The 12 rules says like something. So like if you are interested, like you go and see, but usually nobody will ask those what are those 12 rules. But based on those 12 rules, the RDBMS software has been built. It could be Oracle or it could be DB2, SQL Server or MySQL or Teradata, or they are different things are there. But I will introduce something called as ACID properties, which are very base for EF code rules, which should be followed. So when we are going to discuss SQL, we will discuss about something called as ACID properties in timely manner. So and how the DB2 is satisfying this ACID property. So each and every RDBMS should satisfy ACID properties, and this HDFS or whatever big data databases we are seeing, they also satisfy ACID properties, but may not be as accurate as RDBMS softwares. So they may be satisfying at 1 row level, but multi-row ACID rules are not usually satisfied at here. So what is ACID? Like something like I'm going to just give acronym of it, but we'll discuss more about each term in detail later. A is nothing but atomicity, C is for consistency, I is means isolation, and D means duration. So there are different properties that are built in each and every RDBMS software. So this ACID is must for all RDBMS software. So we'll see what feature is going to satisfy this atomicity and what feature is going to make the database consistency and what feature is going to make isolating different application from each other. Durability means like it's once you store it, it should stay in the disk forever. So how disk like putting the data in disk is nothing but we are achieving durability. So once we shut down the system, our data will not go away because we are putting the data in disk instead of RAM. So that's how the durability is achieved. But these are directly associated with different features of RDBMS, like which are RDBMS concepts are almost all same. The architecture behind each and every database might be different. So we'll see how these are achieved for this DB2 database. So basically DB2 is there on Windows and Linux and Unix. So we are going to see only the DB2 that is there on Windows, Linux and Unix operating systems only. DB2 is also there on Z series uh, database, so which we are not going to see, and DB2 is also there on iSeries databases. So these Z series or iSeries nothing but Z series is nothing but mainframe machine on which DB2 is also there, and DB2 is also there on iSeries. As we are having DB2 on Linux and Unix and Windows, the majority of the sources in banking and healthcare industries, the data is still there on the DB2 mainframe. So are we having any advantage of pulling the data directly from Z series to our DB2 LUW? Yes, because the DB2 is of same product from IBM. It is there on the different platforms. We are having a flexibility directly to connect to DB2 Z series databases and iSeries databases for just pulling the data from there. So these are called as a legacy system databases. So we will see how we can access these two databases. So from DB to LUW Vault, what we do is we are going to access these databases for getting data from these iSeries. So that's the one of the things usually we do at DB to LUW client machine or DB to LUW server. So for getting the data from this to this, so usually this is very important for us to get the data from Z series or I series to distributed vault. Like we usually say, whatever missions we are using, uh, they are called as distributed. Like it could be Intel based or IBM P series, which are called as a distributed system. So DB2 on distributed system is also simply nothing but always distributed systems are going to have OS, one of them Windows, Linux, and Unix operating systems only. So underlying uh, hardware could be anything, but usually we call them as a distributed systems, whereas the Z series and I series are called as legacy systems. So they are having a different kind of setup where we don't operate. So if you would like to do DB2 concepts may be very much similar on DB2 LUW and DB2 Z series and I series. The main underlying difference is the OS where we are operating. As we don't know the OS, this mainframe or iSeries or this iSeries also called as AS400 operating system. So as we don't know how to operate, and there are minor differences between DB2 on LUW and DB2 on Z series or iSeries. So, but the majority of the concept that are derived are same for the DB2. So now you should be very clear what we are going to learn is DB2 LUW DBA only. We don't have anything to do with Z series and I series. If at all any requirements comes to you and they may be asking like, do you support DB2 Z series or DB2 mainframe or DB2 I series or DB2 AS400? We are strictly no. So we are only going to operate DB2 on Linux and Unix and Windows. So we can say DB2 UDW, LUW or DB2 UDB, DBA. So if they are asking like, do you support the UDB also? That's fine, because UDB is also a term for LUW, like which was used in older version. So as sort of licensing, like each and every product will comes with some different licensing mechanism. So uh, depending upon the licensing mechanism, IBM has divided the DB2 product into different editions. Like this is a little bit older till 9.7. So and till 11.1, this is the one, like as of now, most of the industries are using 11.1, and from 11.5 onwards they have eased out these number of editions. Like so there are some editions called Express C and Express Server Edition, and then Workgroup Server Edition, and Advanced Workgroup Server Edition, and then Enterprise Edition, and Advanced Enterprise Edition. Is there anything for a DBA to learn separate things for these things? No, these are all of same base. We are going to just install the software, and depending upon your company requirement and what features you are going to use, depending upon that, we are going to request only license file. License file is going to vary depending upon the feature that you would like to use. So if you are going to use only basic features, or you are not going to be kind of like Express C is a kind of a developer edition, which is a free kind of thing. Express Server Edition is kind of licensing, very minimal license. Usually in real time, these are not used. Only real time, majority of the people, like 90% of the people uses this, and advanced is for only 10%, and very rarely or 1 to 2% only uses these work group server editions. Like so, what is the difference between these editions is like the amount of memory that you can use, the amount of CPU that you can use usually varies. And some of the features such as DPF and fuse scale are only supported. What is DPF? Database partitioning feature, which is going to provide you capability of storing your database data into multiple servers. So that is called as database partitioning feature, or one more feature is called as pure scale, where we are going to access our data from multiple servers. Wherever you say multiple servers are going to involved, that comes under Advanced Enterprise Server Edition licensing feature only. So if you would like to use DPF or fuse scale, then you have to use this advanced server. And IBM also introduced something called as DB2 data warehouse and edition also, that is also similar to advanced enterprise edition. Don't confuse with that. Wherever you see DB2 data warehouse edition is also for enabling DPF and pure scale. So these are the two different features that are going to operate for OL AP. So let us try to understand what is OLAP and OLTP. So let me give quickly. OLTP is nothing but online transactional processing system. So the word itself tells you that we are going to, it's kind of online transaction system. What is example for that? Your online banking or ticket booking systems. So what, as part of online banking, what you are going to do, you are going to uh, log into the login. Like so, whenever you are logging, what will happen in the background? So it is going to, like, whatever username you are going to give, username and password. One moment, please. I'll back in a moment. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm back. So, so whenever you are trying to log into this mission, what will happen is, so the password and username you are going to supply, right? That password and username has to be checked somewhere. So they usually stored in a database table. So So the table like username and password, whatever username you have passed and whatever password you are passed, whether they are correct or not, will be checked by an application. So the application interface that you are using, web URL, may be written in Java or no, Java or .NET or something like that. So that is going to indirectly, like, so the application will be like, this is usually this symbol is a database, and upon that application will be there, and from there you are accessing, like as an end user, people are accessing this thing as an end users. So so we are entering the URL and then entering the username and password. Then it will communicate with application server. Application server again will communicate with the database server, and it will make a connection to the database server, and it will check whether the supplied username and password are correct or not. So if the supplied username and password are correct, then it will allow, and then it will open again some more screen. So whatever screen they are going to display, so that could be your name and then some account balance and something. From where these details, again, this is being displayed from the application server. Application server is going to fetch data relevant to you from one of the table, your name and account number, and then your account balance and the number of transactions, something like this. So whenever you are pressing some button over there, it is going to interact over there. If you are transferring money, what will happen? The money transfer, what is going to involve is money transfer usually. So it is going to update in background. Your account uh, balance will be updated to some. If you are going to transfer 10,000, 10,000 will be deducted, and the same amount will be credited to another account. If it is the same bank, it is going to do these two updates in parallelly. But if it is from different bank, so what it is going to do, it is going to send a request to credit this 10,000 to their account, and so that, like, it is also going to have something interacting with RBI system, right? So there is no physical money transfer between the two banks, and who is going to monitor this and who is going to upload these things are RBI, right? They also might be having an interface that is going to interact with our central bank, Reserve Bank of India. So through which, like, they might be submitting this request, and through which it is going to different bank, some like from SBI to HDFC. If you are doing that, so SBI is going to do this, and through RBI gateway, it may be gateway, it is going to send request to HDFC. So it is going to accept, and in the RBI records, this 10,000 will be deducted from SBI and it will be added to HDFC. So that might be happening, like, as there is a physical transfer of the cash, right? So that might be doing in the background for every screen that you are seeing in real time. That could be online ticket booking, or it could be anything that you are doing. Day-to-day activities are called as online transactional processing system. So for that, the insert, update, deletes, and select, all four operations goes in parallel. Those we call them as a online transactional processing systems. Another kind of systems are called OLAP. So these are also called as online analytic processing systems. So analytic processing systems. So what these are going to do, so these are going to get the data from this OLTP sources. So, and they are going to load the data into this huge databases, and from there the reporting is the main important. Analytics means nothing but generating reports and analyzing this what is happening. So it could be banking or it could be retail chain. So retail might be having OLTP, which is the main for database will be facing that. And there the main important thing is the transaction processing is main system. Like, so whenever I'm doing from retail, like whenever you are going to Reliance, like if they are doing the transaction very slowly, the guy who is standing there and who is billing you, if they are doing it very slowly and if their system is responding slowly, the people will not wait, right? There, whatever like they are taking the billing should done very fastly. So that means like insert, update, delete should get done very quickly without any delay kind of thing. Like you can in fact select. So they should get done in seconds only. We can't wait more than that. So, but here in case of OLAP, it is the only management is going to see the reports. So reports are going to be only select, right? So, but how we are going to load the data into these systems is using the different parallel load or something will be there. In DB2, we call them as a load command. Using that, we are going to dump the data into these systems once in a time. So once in a day or like 1 week, once in a week or something like this. So then we are going to generate these reports. So reports are going to be done like only select, right? Select intensive operation. So here I'm expecting to perform this select in a better way, but I'm not going to modify the data. Once I have loaded the data, here there is no point of modifying the data in OLAP. So in OLAP, insert, update, deletes are not going to happen frequently as OLAP online transactional processing system. That is a very uh, different, like a very high level we are going to discuss. So, and our like whatever the session we are going to discuss is always going to be OLAP oriented. So OLAP oriented means so almost all the databases that RDBMS softwares are used are 90% of them are for OLAP systems only. And what is OLAP and OLAP data warehousing database? Like these are also called as simply analytical processing systems. Also, we sometimes we also call as data warehouse systems. So whenever data warehouse system comes into picture, we are going to use DB2 with DPF features. So what is going to be used for this is DB2 DPF. DPF, as I told, data will be distributed across multiple systems. A single table data also will be distributed across multiple servers itself. So that is called as a DP2 DPF. So which we are not discussing in this session. Our major concentration will be on how the data will be placed in a single system. So then that we called as a single partition database. So all the things that we are going to discuss are on a single partition database. So we are not going to touch the DB2 DPF, but I will be giving what is this DB2 DPF. So once you are mastered this single partition, then only you can look for the DB2 DPF or one more thing called as the DB2 pure scale. We will see once we are done with the basic course, we'll see what is these features and where they can be explored. So the DB2 pure scale and DB2 DPF are going to involve the multiple servers for a single database. So, but in single partition, we are going to have only one server where we are going to host our database and we are going to do all our processing. So single partition database are usually in size, they are not going to be very bigger, but the main concentration of the single partition database are for using them for OLTP transactional systems. So let us come back to our versions and see. So these are the different editions that are there depending upon that. So usually from one edition to another version, what is the major difference is the CPU and memory limit will be there, and only DPF and PureScale are there in this advanced enterprise edition. And apart from that, all features are available in enterprise server edition. And in the workgroup editions, like there are some other features are limited over there in these three editions. but majorly these three things are from work group to enterprise. Majorly the CPU and memory that you can use for the DB2 are limited in work group serveration. Then there is no major feature difference between enterprise serveration and work group serveration. If you are going to utilize your database for small scale industry, then you can go for these things. Advanced work group edition or work group server edition, like HADR and all those things are supported in both these all versions kind of thing. So from 11.5 onwards, they have eased out the editions like to very much like this community edition, standard edition, and advanced edition, like the how they were in previously and how they were in new editions. Like I am clearly giving here a table format. Like so, previously we used to have Express C edition and developer community edition, something like this. They have been changed to community edition. Community edition is of free of cost. You can use anywhere, but only thing that you are going to have is some limitations. All the features are going to be supported in community edition. Only thing is the memory and CPU and how much data you can store. The cap is limited here. Only 100 GB data can be stored in a community edition, and the CPU and memory used also very limited, like it's 2 to 4 GB or something, 4 GB I think. So 4 GB memory we can use maximum, though we are having a number of CPUs available with us, and we'll be able to use 2 or 3 only as part of community edition. In standard edition is like uh, in our example, like previous example, we have seen advanced work group server edition and work group server edition and the direct standard edition, right? So instead of that, we are going to have standard edition. Like so, standard edition and advanced editions are going to be mostly used in real time. So the community edition won't be used in real time. So, but for our lab and all those things, we can use DB2 community edition. Previously, we used to use this advanced enterprise server edition and all those things as a trial licenses. But as the community edition came into picture, we may not be using more than 100 GB. So we are good to use this one. So in production also, IBM confirmed that we can use, but only thing is if you are going to get the license from IBM, they are also going to provide you support in case if you are having any ADA issue, and if you are not able to solve any issue, we can contact IBM for fixing those issues kind of thing. So now in from 11.5 modification pack 4 onwards, we are having only 3 editions available. So usually what varies from one edition to another edition is like this is the CPU, number of CPU supported are only 2 core CPUs is only supported, though you might be having a number with that doesn't matter. You can the DB2 is going to use only this. So if the CPU and memory are going to be limited, the performance also is going to be lesser, right? 16 GB is for Express and I think 16 GB for community edition as well. So this is how something it varies, like in terms of CPU and in terms of RAM and in terms of the data that we can store. In it was previously Express and Express C was having 15 TB, but community edition is going to support only 100 TB without the major features. Like here also the Express and Workgroup and Enterprise are having DPF and Pure Scale, something like that. But in case of community edition, all the features are supported. Only thing is these three: how much data we can store and how much memory we can use and how many CPUs we can use for this DB2 processing is are limited over there. So once we are installing how there are different tools or different applications that can use the DB2 application or DB2 database. So how they are going to connect is they might be connecting to our database using different drivers. So we call them as a different drivers. So the drivers are available in DB2, or the drivers always comes in inbuilt comes with different applications. So they can make, if they want to download the drivers and the DB2 clients are free of cost. So we can download and we can install any drivers for accessing our DB2 database. So we'll see how to explore these different drivers. We used to have something like the GUI tools like a control center and replication center and something like this. Some of them has been taken out. As part of that, like they have introduced something called as IBM Data Studio as a GUI version of a tool for accessing DB2. So IBM is also offering some kind of other products that are also very much related to database world, but we may not be using them. So as part of database world, like we might be doing database modeling, right? So that is in IBM is offering IBM InfoSphere Data Architect, but the famous tool that is being used in real time is a Erwin. Instead of this, Erwin is the one of the major data modeling tool, and there is something called as Optim Configuration Manager and Optim Performance Manager and Optim Performance Manager Extension. These are three are add-ons for DB2. So if you don't want to do any manual configuration, if you want to use sophisticated algorithms that is going to tune the our different memory parameters or our database performance, then we need to purchase these three different add-ons different depending upon our requirement. So if you see configuration manager usually going to configure our different parameters as per our workload. The performance manager is kind of a more advanced than performance configuration manager, which is going to do the performance tuning for our database. So if you would like to have extended edition, Optim Performance Manager extended edition, it's kind of more in terms of performance and also troubleshooting help it will provide. So these are kind of add-ons that we can install upon DB2 database to do something. But the data architect is a kind of different thing that is going to for modeling only. There is no direct relation with this data architect and DB2. So usually the DDL statement that we are going to get, create and alter statement, that we can generate using this data architect or Erwin tool, something like this, and which we are going to create on our DB2 database. So the control center tools were discontinued from DB2 10.1, and in place of that, IBM are offering DB2 IBM Data Studio. So IBM Data Studio is free of cost. We can download and we can access our DB2 database from this Data Studio, which is a graphical user interface. So only thing is like we are having inbuilt different tools available which are non-graphical user interfaces. If you'd like to have graphical user interfaces on Windows, so you can install this and you can access your database server from this Windows machine Data Studio. It could be there on Linux or Unix. We'll see that how we are going to do that. So there are different components that are there. So in DB2, like so usually wherever I am saying DB2, let us consider that as a DB2 server, and wherever we are saying DB2 connect, it is a kind of a little bit add-on DB2 connect, which is going to make a connection to the DB2 mainframe machines and DB2 iSeries, like whatever we have discussed. But by default, a DB2 server is DB2 Enterprise Server Edition is having, or Advanced Enterprise Server Edition is having the DB2 Connect inbuilt in. What a DB2 Connect comes is, it is going to have a driver that is capable of making a communication with mainframe and iSeries machines. Like so, in LUW world, so Linux and Unix, Windows world, the protocol that is used is a TCP/IP protocol, and the protocol exchange and everything is it is very understandable. But when it is going to interact with the mainframe machine, the protocols and how it is going to interact is going to vary drastically, as the mainframe machines are very famous for the security feature, right? So they have very robust security mechanism. It is not very easy for different databases to connect to the mainframe. They need to have also different drivers to be inbuilt, but as DB2 and mainframe are from this IBM product, they have included something called as DB2 Connect, which is going to have the drivers that are required for making connection to the mainframe and iSeries. But as I told, DB2 Enterprise Server Edition or Advanced Enterprise Edition, when it comes to 11.5, Advanced Edition is going to have the DB2 Connect inbuilt in the server. If you like to have only DB2 Connect client, or if you would like to have a client that is going to make a connection to the mainframe and access from DB2, like it could be Linux and Unix Windows, there you would like to just connect to the mainframe machine and see the data for cross verification, then you can install DB2 Connect client, which is of Connect Personal Edition, something like this will come, which is of very lesser cost. Instead of installing DB2 server, we can just go for DB2 Connect client or DB2 Connect server, which are having a little licensing will differ. So on DB2 Connect or DB2 Connect server also will be there, both like it's enterprise edition, or if you are going to have little limited feature, we can also say DB2 database along with the capability to access those, we say Connect server. If it is only Connect client, it's only meant for accessing remote databases. It is not going to have any server capabilities. So that means wherever we say server, it is going to have a database. Within that, we are going to create different database objects and store the data. So storage capability will come into server, whereas the client is just meant for accessing the databases that are there on the server. So, but by default, the DB2 client and the runtime client are there that don't have the capability to make a connection to a mainframe. So anybody can access our DB2 database by using DB2 client or runtime client, which are we also call them as a drivers. So this is how whenever we would like to make a connection to DB2 iSeries and JetOS, we usually make using the DB2 Connect. So the DB2 Connect only comes into picture whenever there is a need for us to make a connection to the database that is there, DB2 database that is there on DB2 Z series or JetOS or iSeries. So then only you need to consider, like, so if they are saying DB2 Connect, don't get confused. Whenever they say DB2 Connect, just remember that it is just we need to have a requirement to make a connection to these two walls. That's why we are going to install that. Otherwise, we usually 99% of industries don't have this DB2 Connect installed. We always install our DB2 software only, normal DB2 software. So DB2 Connect Enterprise Edition or DB2 Personal Edition. So all the software that we are going to install, we are going to download same thing, and we can install any feature as we require. We'll see that. So this is how it is going to make. And for that, like, there is something called as the DRDA application request is the driver that is needed for making a connection to these two databases that are there on Z series and iSeries. DRDA application request is a kind of that is going to make a different driver that is to make these connections. So those are the different editions and products that we are having in DB2. Let us try to do installation. So basically, before installing anything, any software, there would be some prerequisites will be there, right? So the prerequisites could be amount of memory that is needed, and the amount of minimum number of CPUs that is needed, and the disk space that is needed. Along with this, the operating system on which it is going to support. So depending upon the version that you are going to install, every version is going to have some kind of prerequisites. So we always should check if it is a DB2 11.1 we are going to install, then it is going to be compatible with. So it is going to say if you are going to Windows or Linux or something like this, it is Red Hat Linux. So it is going to say Red Hat Linux 7.7 is the OS that is minimum required, and there also, like, we're going to have subversions, right? We say TL level or patch level kind of thing, 1. So 7.1 onwards, minimum level required is 7.1. From that only it is going to be supported. On Windows also, from Windows 8 onwards only this 11.1 will support. If you are going to install this before Windows 8 or 7.1 Red Hat Linux 7.1, it will fail, and it is going to require minimum some like there is no like 250 MB or 1 GB is only memory required. So, but usually in real time we will be having much more memory. Uh, but you just remember 1 GB as memory that would be required, and there would be Mani. We are going to see this process model and memory model at the end of the course when we are going to know uh, all the things about DB2. So the process model and memory model is not something which we can see now, because the process model or memory model are going to if you know all the topics, then we are going to summarize things, and we are going to see how and each and everything is going to interact with the background. That we will see in detail at the end of the course kind of thing. So once we completed all the topics, then only we are going to see those to understand very clearly what is happening in the background, how we are going to uh, fine tune our environment to have the better capabilities and better interaction between different processes. That we'll see that. So as of now, but this installation, as part of installation, the prerequisites will be something like this, and there will be some libraries also will be needed. Usually on Linux and Unix, so the C++ library. So we say G C++ library something would be needed for installing a DB2. So there will be some C++ libraries version also will be there. Minimum version something will be there. Something like this. There are a number of some kind of prerequisites will be there. Whatever we have discussed are some minimal requirement. So before installing any software, it is recommended to check prerequisites. If your mission is satisfying those prerequisites, then only go ahead kind of thing. So where I can find these prerequisites is you can directly find them in IBM website, like IBM DB2 website. So or once you have downloaded the software, let us see how we can download. So disk space and memory, and there would be security requirement and operating system requirement. So if you see Express edition, like which is of till it was there in 11.1, right? So it is having something like install prerequisites. It is need to have 2 crores CPU should be there minimum, and 2 GB memory is needed, and disk also to install the software. It needs some 3 GB disk for installation, and to explore and to utilize the database, we might need some user IDs to be created, and then to install the software, we need administrative account or root account in Linux level. That is needed. Something like this will be there. So always, this is the link that is going to provide you different prerequisites we can check. You can go and check what are the different DB2 versions available and what is the prerequisites for that. You can check here. It is a DB2 home page in IBM. So they usually publishes what are the different things are there. So there is something like DB2 tools you can explore, and also you can explore how we can reach to DB2 IBM support. So usually these are the different DB2 products. DB2 Connect, DB2 Event Store. Also our major concentration, like so IBM is offering whatever DB2 we are learning, it will be very much same except DB2 ZOS. So all the things like whatever DB2 warehouse dash DB or DB2 on cloud or DB2 warehouse on cloud, DB2 Nest Extender and DB2 Pure Scale, the base features are DB2 LUW or DB2 Connect and DB2 Connect, as we discussed, this is only to make connection to ZOS or iSeries, but we are going to discuss or we are going to install DB2 LUW, and so that is a base. So if we are going to install the DB2 on cloud, that will become DB2 on cloud. DB2 on cloud is a service offering that is IBM is providing on Azure or its own IBM cloud. That is only thing that is doing that. There is nothing much difference, though there are some features called net search extenders, like which are going to be more in terms of if you are making your database to be a Google-like database. So why the Google is how the Google is searching, right? So Google is going to have something like text extenders. So whatever keyword we are going to type there, it is going to match with the different things that are there within the a column kind of thing or within the row. So I might be storing your name as something like, or let me say DB2LUW as a I am storing in name. So in RDBMS world, so usually comparing direct DB2LUW will be there, or instead of if you like to have something like wherever I say DB or DB2 or L, I need to get these result which are matching with word, a sub part of word within this entire column value, then I am going to use this kind of search net extender capability for having this search engine capabilities. So apart from that, these are the different products, and you can always, if you like to download any product, then you can go to DB2 Linux, Unix, and Windows, then either support or so usually like if you are having any issues and if you'd like to report to IBM, usually like this is the page where you come and you can say open case. So if you say open case, it will prompt you to log in. So with your company mail ID and all those things, you need to have a login. But as I have registered for IBM, but this won't be allow me to raise a case. It will ask me to enter the customer ID. So whenever you are purchasing a license from IBM, it will have a customer ID and all those things will be there. So that customer ID can be will be asked and you have to register with that mail ID. So the product that we are like, the case will be like this. So whenever we are having a, so it is registered for support, we need to say here, and we are going to have something like so request access, we have to say to your company thing, and then we will get an access. Otherwise, you always say once you got this account is set up, you always say open support, and then whatever products you have the thing discussed, like so you can mention what is the issue DB2LUW bug or support. I am not able to do something, and can you share the knowledge, or if you are expecting this could be bug, then also you can say here DB2, you can say here these products will be found here DB2 DB2 Linux, Unix, Windows. So then depending upon as I don't have registered any support, so I need to register here, but it will ask me to do this version and everything will be like this. This is called as a, previously we call them as a PMR problem management report, but they have changed the name to case here. So case will be like this. And so if you'd like to download any DB2 products, then you can simply say DB2 fix central. So this is going to show the a number of products like this. So the DB2 LUW products all will be shown along with FixPack. FixPack is nothing but here in DB2 or in IBM terminology, FixPack is like whatever known bugs are reported in the software will be released later as part of FixPack. So here, whatever you see here, these are the different versions available. DB2 9.1, 9.5, 9.7, 9.8, and 10.1, and 10.5, and 11.1, and 11.5. As of now, IBM is providing only support to 11.1. Once I purchase license, till what time they are going to provide support, they are going to tell you here. If you come to this page, here itself, they are going to tell you 9.7, 9.11.9.1, they have provided the support till 2012 only. If you see 10.1 is having support till 2017 only, and 10.5 in last year, April 30, 2020, this support for this version has ended. So if your company still decide like, oh no, I can't go to 11.1 because of some application dependencies that I'm having with 10.5. If I go to 11.1, I will lose some functionality and I need to modify my code in application drastically. I don't want to go, but I would like to have IBM support if something happens and if my DBAs are not able to fix it and if there is some kind of some more bugs also get reported, if I would like to have IBM support, I can go and have extended support. I can buy extended support for the DB2 10.5 from the IBM. So in case of that will be very costly. So the normal support comes with a license. So though you can, once you purchase the license, you are entitled to use this DB2 10.5 a number of years. There is no limit at all. But the only comes is only the support will have the limitation will be there. So after that also, if you like to purchase the support, you are very much free to access the support or extend the support by paying extra money. Which will be usually of much costlier than purchasing license. So sometimes industries go for this extended support as well. As of now, 11.1 and 11.5 are having support without IBM has not announced any in-depth support for this product. Like usually they intimate you 2 years or 3 years, 3 years in time, 3 years before end of support, they will intimate you. So they will give 3 years time, at least 3 years time to plan to migrate to newer version or something like this. So within version, these we are going to have something like till 10.5 we are having only fixed pack. That means IBM initially releases the version release like GA is the base version that they are going to release. If they are finding any bugs here, they are going to release intermediate fixed pack. So the bugs whatever fixed here, they will notify these are the bugs identified. This has been fixed in this, and if you are facing these bugs, we advise you to install the latest fix pack. Something like this, they have released 11 fix packs in 10.5. So that's how they always do bug fixes and release the fix packs continuously for the version that are in support. As the DB2 10.5 got end of the support, they will not release any more fix packs for this the 10.5. So now we are either we need to download 11.1 or 11.5. 11.5 is a latest version and which got released in 2020 itself. So 11.1 is like released in 3 to 4 years back. So it has released the GA version. From 11.1, what they have changed is instead of only releasing fixed pack, they also started releasing the minor enhancements. So why they usually go from one version to another version, whenever they are going to release enhancement to the DB2 product. So they might be offering some more features that will enable the customer to kind of explore. Like either if they don't provide any further enhancements or if they don't give any latest features, there is no need for me to go from 10.5 to 11.1, right? It's obviously they are going to include some new features in 11.1 and 11.5. If they are interesting, then only I will upgrade to there, right? Otherwise, I will stick here and I will may pay for a few bucks for extended support and I will still stay here. But as the latest features will be there and which will give the performance benefit or storage benefits and something will always comes into latest features. So till 11.5 they don't release any feature within the version. So but from starting from 11.1 they started releasing the minor uh, enhancements within the version that they called as a modification. So what is mod? One means it is a modification within this version, modification one. So some minor enhancement released in modification one. So and along with that, they also fixed some bugs here. So that is the meaning of modification and fix pack. Wherever you see fix pack, fixing some bugs over there and the modification is nothing but releasing minor modification. So within the modification one, they have released some more bugs that are going to be very quick. It is going to be specific to one bug. They are saying ifix001, and they are released modification 2, and with that they also released some more bug fixes. So like this, they have released till now. They are released enhancements, four enhancements they made within this, and 5 bug fixes they made. So bug fixes will not be only one bug. It's kind of cumulative bugs will be there. If you'd like to understand what are the bugs they have fixed and how, means like you can open this link, click on this. It will show what are the bugs that are fixed in this version. So always like this is going to be cumulative. So you can download either GA, you need not to download base version. So whatever latest fix pack there with the latest modification, it is always advised to download that whenever you are going to perform the installation. So along with that, if you see here, you will see the supported operating systems here. So AX and Linux, and if you'd like to see what are the bugs that are fixed here, you can see in this list, DB2 11.1 APAR fix list. So this is going to show what are the different bugs, and if there are any security related bugs, they will highlight in hyper and security related kind of thing. So most of the people interested in security fixes, like whenever there are some security bugs are there, they need to be fixed immediately without waiting much kind of thing. Whenever they release the security features, bugs are reported, so they usually get applied in real time on top of our installation. So if you download, if you like to download the software for AX, then AX is a Unix flavor of. So why Unix and Linux two flavors are there? Basically, Unix is a paid version and Linux is a kind of open source version kind of thing. So Linux and Unix are same flavor. So Unix has invented initially, and then Linux came into picture later, which is of free version of Unix is called as a Linux. So it could be free version or it could be a little cost we pay for support. Whenever we want support, then only we need to pay for enterprise editions of this Red Hat Linux, or there are a number of players there in Linux and a number of players in Unix one. In Unix, usually AIX and HP Unix, and there is something called as Solaris. These are the three Unix flavors that are available. So usually whenever you see Unix, like AIX is one of the big player, and Solaris is another big player, and there is something called as HP Unix also there. So it is not being widely developed in HP Unix nowadays. So we can ignore that. Nowadays, only AX is one of the Unix flavor, and another is Solaris. So Linux, we are having different Linux as Red Hat Linux, SUSE Linux, and there is something called as Ubuntu or CentOS, and there are a number. IBM also started something as Jed Linux, so which is going to have features as mainframe. Jed is nothing but JedOS. That mainframe feature they are going to introduce in Linux, that is called as Jed Linux. So that's why there is something called as differently Linux 64-bit systems, Jed 9 Jed series. So this is also one more Linux type they have introduced. It is IBM proprietary Linux. So if you'd like to on Linux on 64-bit on which hardware you are going to use, whether it is a normal AMD processor and Intel based systems like our laptops, then you have to download it for this one. There is something called as IBM is also provides hardware, something like a P series hardware that we called as a power Little Indian on power system. So that mission, then we are going to download this specific one. So they are going to have some more optimization for their own hardware. Apart from that, the same thing, this also we can install here, but it is advised whenever you are having P series hardware, it is advised to download this one. So as we are having this one, Linux on, so the Linux flavor can be anything. There is nothing the flavor specific. So we are going to only hardware specific. This AMD 64 or Intel based process I'm having, right? So I'm going to expand this and we can download different things here. So universal is like a, it's not cumulative one. So we always advise to download this service pix pack. So which is kind of cumulative one, and so which will have all base features along with all fixes or modifications that are done in this. And if you are only interested in DB2 clients, then you can download the clients kind of thing. Or if you are interested in drivers only, drivers can be downloaded. As I told, NetSearch extender is nothing but wherever if you are having only installed this NetSearch extender, then you can go for this. So once you open on the click on the service pack, then it will open like this. So select fixes, something like this. Select the fix pack that is very specific to you, like it is showing only one option here. I'm going to continue, select and continue. So we'll close the session in 2 minutes. Sorry for the delay. So then you can say here, as I have already logged in here, it is not asking me to uh, log in here, but it will ask you to log in. So if you don't have login, you can create a one login here, create IBM ID. So with your Gmail. So I just logged in with this. So and then I can say download now. So download option, different download option will be there. You can change download options. So there are different download options. So usually if you like to download as you download other software, then you can say download using your browser. You can say, or if you directly download using SFTP or FTPS commands from directly your server, you can use this one. They will generate a temporary link. For doing so, you can usually in cloud and all those things, like you might be not be having a window to transfer the softwares and all those things, then you can go for this one. You will get a link and there you can say wget is a command to get online missions. You will get that software, but usually this is usually we do in real time also. Download using your browser, and there is something called as download director. If something your download fails in between, it is having a capability to resume where it has failed. But whenever you are doing it HTTPS, it is going to be once it fails, you have to start from starting only. So this download director also you can do. It needs a add-on that need to be installed on your mission and it will guide you. But I am going to do this using browser. Continue. So what I'm going to do is it is going to be this one like this. I just clicking on this, it will get downloaded here. So like this, it is going to be downloaded here. And like this, if you like to, if you are interested for Linux and something like this, Linux, right? And if you would like to install on your Windows machine also, you can download for Windows here. So it's Windows one. Similar way, you need to go for service pack and then you need to select different option over there and then you download here. So if you go and change this to download option to this other things, you can give a try, download director, then you can change this and it will just we need to add a add-on. These are simply downloading option. This is nothing different. So what you'd love to download. So download director. I don't want everything. This NT server. These are for Windows. So you can say, let me download only one. 0.73 GB. I would like to download only server and I don't want any other things.
Venkat, if you download from browser, then unfortunately if it stops in between, then we have to start from starting onwards, right?
Yes, there are, yes. If you are using HTTPS, yes. If you are going to using download director, then it will start from where it got start. So as I don't have any download director, it is saying if your download director does not exist, install using this reinstall. Something like this, I'm going to click on here. So it is going to a small plugin. This is going to install download director. It is going to uh, keep, and it's not opening somehow. It is an installation file. It's a Java based installation file. You need to have a Java and all those things. Then only you can install this download director, which is going to manage if in between, if the installation fails also, it is having capability to resume where it has failed. So you can try this download director on your machine like so. It seems some Java directories are having issue on my my machine. That's why I'm not able to install these things. Otherwise, you can always go for this download director, which is a preferred method if you are having network issues. Otherwise, if you are not having, if you are having a good broadband connectivity, or if you are doing it in your offices, then you can go for HTTPS as well. So, which don't have any interruption in between.
Okay.
And if you would like to do directly from the server or a SFTP, so then also you can go for this one, the second method. So these are the three methods. So if you say download using bulk FTPS or SFTP, it is going to be command that you are going to give, and it is going to generate a temporary link for that. So, but like once you download it, like we don't be using this method, and we need not to know all these methods and what is the command that we are going to use. So this is the FTP server they are going to give, and they are providing user ID and password. So anyway, like if you like to know FTP commands and all those things, FTP and then command, and if you say FTP the server, and if you like to do it on Windows machine, then you can say FTP and then that server name and username you have to mention, and then it will connect to that. And if you are doing it on Linux machine, then also FTP can be used, SFTP can be used. So FTP they usually don't mention. Secure FTP is recommended. So username you have to mention here. So username here, and the password if you mention. So it seems it's not supporting this SFTP. We need to do SFTP. So then also it is going to be, do you want to continue? Yes, it will add like this, but we don't use this array very specifically, but somehow I'm not able to type here. But this is how we have to use, but somehow it's not allowing me to type here. Yes. But something like this we have to use, and then to get the software directly to the server. So in case of Linux also, you can use the SFTP, and then it will prompt you this one. Or there is something called as mget or mget. The subcommand is mget if you are trying to binary version. So usually mget or wget are the commands that are recommended whenever you are going to download it directly on any mission. So you can say FTP and SFTP and mget start, then it will download that once you establish a connection to that. Or there is something called a wget, and this command, this link you are going to give, then it will prompt you to password and username, and then the software will be downloaded. It's just a matter of how you are going to download the software. Once you are having the software, then we can transfer the software from my desktop to the server by using a tool called WinSCP. Usually in real time, we are going to have a WinSCP. WinSCP and PuTTY are the lightweight directory tools. So these need not to be installed. So these can be, you can directly download. So there are something like installable are there, or portable are there. Portable WinSCP is something like this. It will be there. from the winscp.net, you can just download and click plug and play kind of thing. So this we call them as a plug and play kind of thing. So you can come to this winscp.net and you can download here. Download will be there. So either you can download portable downloads or you can download installable one. So as per your thing, wish kind of thing. Installable. So I don't want to do that and I would like to go for portables, then I can download this one. In real time, both of the things are accepted. So if it is installable, then the software may be installed by your company people instead of you. So if you install it, it will get installed, but I'm going to do open this zip file. I'm this without installation. I would like extract and use it. I'm extract it and I got the folder and I got these things, right? These are these things, 4 files are there. This is the file that if I double click that, I can use this application. It's a very lightweight application that we can use. WinSCP, it is going to nothing. WinSCP is not going to do nothing new. Whatever we have discussed, FTP or SFTP, right? That command we can handle from WinSCP very easily. So we are going to say, if you click on that, it will ask me to enter the server name to which you would like to make a connection. So what kind of protocol you would like to use. SFTP is the usually supported, or SCP is remote copy kind of thing. So SCP between two Windows Linux servers, we use SCP command. But from Windows to Linux or Linux cross platforms, we can use this one. If it is a cloud, then we have to use different depending upon our cloud. Amazon S3 is a storage layer of Amazon web series services, AWS. So then usually it is SFTPS, and then you enter the server number, port number, or the host name, or it could be the IP address. So the IP address, how to get IP address on the Linux is ipconfig-a, but some of the OS are not supporting ipconfig-a, especially SUSE Linux is no longer supporting this ipconfig. So IP space A is going to give the IP address details as well. So here if you see different Ethernet, or this is a local and this is the Ethernet card on which we have enabled. This is the iNet. IPv4 address is this one. So usually we make connection using IPv4. So I'm copying it and I'm going to paste this one so that I can make connection from my Windows machine to that. So usually in real time, we always use WinSCP and PuTTY. So I'm logging using root. So either you may be allowed to use root is the super ID at Linux level. So once I got right hand side is in my Linux machine, left hand side is my Windows machine. So I have downloaded the software to download folder. I click on the folder symbol. So browse to where I want to navigate here. I'm going to navigate downloads here. So and click on OK. It is going to show what are the things that are downloaded here. So you can see here what are the things that are downloaded for Linux is this one. This is downloaded, and if you'd like to do, you can click on this and upload here, or just drag here. Just drag this, and it is going to copy this, and it is going to show this one. Likewise, and if you like to, as I'm already having this, let us. So, and likewise, if you like to copy the files from Linux to here, then you click on here, and you can say download option, or you can say just drag from right to left. It will get downloaded to your machine. So that is how we do the transfer of files between your machine to Linux or Unix operating systems. This is the WinSCP, is the standard tool that is used across industry. So and how I'm going to do install and everything is something I'm going to use a PuTTY. So this is also portable, like you can download it from PuTTY Oh, sorry. So let me say this. So there is a something called as putty.org. From this you can download either installable or a portable one. Like, so if you say here, the first one, you can download here the package files for, and all those things are there. There are a number of things depending upon your operating system and all those things. You can download. It will be there for Mac and all those things. Putty installer, if you like to install this one, and but I always look for portable ones. So this is 64-bit. Like if I say here, this is going to download it and I can click and use it directly. If I click here, it will open this one. I need not to install this one. So it will open like this and I can directly enter. So always it is going to listen at port number 22 and always we are going to say SSH to our kind of thing. So the port number that always listens at SSH protocol always listen at the port number called 22. Some people will change to avoid kind of confusion for hackers. Some people may change this port number, then you will be notified in our team as part of our KT, but usually port number 22 we use and SSH is there, and then you can say open here, and then it will prompt you to enter the ID, root, and then password. So, and then we will see different Linux commands and we'll try to install the software in next session. So this is how we are going to make. Like so, from now onwards, we are going to use Putty for making a connection to the remote server. So as in real time, we don't be having any direct access to the server. We always have to access the server using the Putty like tools. There are a number of tools available, but Putty is a open source tool which is free of cost. We can download and which is supported anywhere. And WinSCP for transferring kind of thing. Instead of using any WinSCP, if you'd like to use, you can also use the CMD command, and from there you can also say SFTP, and then you can say the IP address of this. IPA is going to IP address, right? So here in Putty, like if you select it, it is get copied automatically. That's a good thing. So SFTP, and then it is going to, so somehow Venkat user it is telling. So like instead of this, you can also say the user that you would like to say root at the rate of this one. So it is asking me to enter the password here. Once I made a connection to this SFTP server, I can it is connected now. I can there are some SFTP commands. I can transfer the files from my Windows machines to that, or I can copy the files from remote machine to here. Something like there are dir and all those commands are there. The whatever mission to which I connected, whatever commands I am saying, those are on the remote mission. If you like to do on the local mission, it's a local will be there, dir something will be there. So you can familiarize with that, but usually we don't use this command. But in worst case, this is also another alternate approach to make transfer between two servers. And this is going to be our main, Putty is going to be main, our working session in real time, from where we are going to enter all different commands and we are going to see here. So that's the for today's session. And any doubts till now? Any things, whatever we have discussed? Okay. If you got any doubts about editions and all those things, like while we are installing, we'll see again and how we are going to activate different editions also. There also we can see the different editions and how and what is the purpose of them. So let us close the session for today and we'll meet tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. Okay. Thank you all for joining and have a nice day.